We operate under the assumption that when we take an action, our conscious mind made the choice to do so. But in the 1980s, neurologist Benjamin Libet devised an experiment that revealed a biological delay in human agency. The conscious mind thinks it is making a spontaneous choice, but the brain has already decided to move. This illustrates the readiness potential. When subjects randomly pressed a button, electrodes recorded a buildup of electrical charge in the brain. That neurological spike occurred up to half a second before subjects reported feeling the conscious desire to move. This loss of agency extends beyond motor tasks. Yale's Automaticity and Cognition Laboratory demonstrated that complex social judgments are entirely automated. Within a quarter second of encountering someone, your brain retrieves specific attitudes, stereotypes, and emotional reactions, triggered directly by environmental cues, bypassing conscious control. This invisible automation governs the bulk of your existence. Studies monitoring daily experience show that approximately 43% of human behavior is executed entirely by the basal ganglia, the brain's deep-seated procedural habit center. You don't consciously execute those actions, you just observe them happening. We walk around believing we are the captains of our own ships. In reality, that conscious part of you is just a tiny fraction. You are being steered by a massive, invisible machine operating deep beneath the surface. To understand why this machine acts the way it does, we have to look at when it was built. Almost the entirety of your subconscious programming was written during the first 7 years of your life. This visualization contrasts two radically different states of brain activity. As adults, we spend our waking hours up here in active, focused beta waves, operating between 12 and 40 hertz. But children under 7 spend almost all their time down here, in the slow, low-frequency delta and theta states, between 0 and 8 hertz. Theta is the exact frequency used in clinical hypnotherapy. At this age, a child has not yet developed the critical filter, the analytical part of the mind that evaluates information before accepting it. Their brain functions as a highly receptive, unfiltered recording device. Because that filter is absent, everything in the immediate environment is downloaded directly into the long-term memory systems of the subconscious. This includes parental behavioral scripts, cultural anxieties, and what analytical psychologist Carl Jung identified as deep-seated archetypal complexes, universal patterns of thought and instinct shared across human populations. Through constant repetition, this raw data solidifies. The observations of your childhood physically etch themselves into your neurobiology, forming the permanent baseline algorithms of your subconscious mind. Your current adult personality, your automatic reactions, and your deepest fears are rarely the product of conscious design. They are the flawless execution of a script written by a highly impressionable child. This creates the central neurobiological conflict of adulthood. You have your conscious intent, housed in the prefrontal cortex, constantly fighting against automated habits stored in the basal ganglia, but it is an incredibly unfair fight. Conscious willpower is an energy-intensive resource. The moment you experience physical exhaustion, mental fatigue, or emotional stress, the resources available to your prefrontal cortex are rapidly depleted. When that cognitive load gets too high, your brain shifts control over to its most energy-efficient system. Neuroscientists call this a capture error. The stressed conscious mind yields to the basal ganglia, and those deep, automatic childhood scripts take over to handle the situation. To protect the illusion that you are still in charge, your conscious mind immediately rationalizes the impulse. It invents a perfectly logical reason after the fact for why you ate the junk food, snapped at your partner, or retreated from an opportunity. This is why relying on sheer willpower is a biological lie. If you try to fight a deeply coded, highly efficient subconscious script using a fatigued prefrontal cortex, you are mathematically destined to fail. We do, however, have a neurological loophole. While Libet's research proved the brain initiates action before we are aware of it, he also discovered that we retain a brief window of executive veto power. In the 200 milliseconds before you physically act, your conscious mind can halt the impulse. We might lack free will, but we possess free won't. Using that veto power constantly is exhausting. For permanent behavioral change, you have to bypass the analytical mind entirely. This schematic illustrates that process. By dimming and powering down the default mode network, the region responsible for mind wandering and ego defense, we open a direct line to the subconscious. Once the analytical filter is quieted, you can access deeper subcortical structures by artificially inducing the childhood theta wave state. This is achieved clinically through hypnotherapy, or naturally by leveraging the groggy, transitional moments right before you fall asleep or just as you wake up. In this highly suggestible window, you can utilize authoritative autosuggestion. By repeating highly specific, emotionally charged commands, you can physically disrupt the default fear loops of the amygdala and begin inserting new behavioral code directly into your procedural memory. There is a catch, known as the law of reversed effort. If you try to force these new beliefs using intense willpower or mental coercion, your subconscious will actively resist. Successful reprogramming requires a state of profound physical relaxation and quiet, vivid conviction. The mechanics of your brain guarantee that your actions will be automated. The only choice you actually have is who writes the code. If you do not actively take control of this process, your environment and past scripts will run you by default. Soon, the illusion of agency is just the first step toward actually severing those strings.